Welcome to my channel of ZF Story Life. Don't forget to subscribe button and press on the bell icon for more inspiration and mind-blowing stories. In real life, Alex was well known in his town as an expert rehabilitating troubled dogs, especially German Shepherds. He had spent 15 years as a police dog handler and another 10 years working privately with aggressive and traumatized animals. When he received a call from the local animal control service, he was finishing up with another German Shepherd, helping it adjust to a new family. The voice of the officer sounded alarmed. They needed urgent help with a dog that had spent almost its entire life chained up. The story was sad but unfortunately common. A dog named Gray had lived in the yard of a private house tied to a dog house with a heavy metal chain since Alex's car was in the shop. A veterinarian from an animal protection society picked him up. On the way, they discussed the situation. And even with Alex's extensive experience, it seemed daunting. The dog wasn't just afraid of people, it had turned into a wild and uncontrollable animal ready to attack anyone who came near. When they arrived, Alex immediately realized the situation was even worse than described. Gray, a large dog with matted fur, started barking ferociously at the sight of people. Even the seasoned handler froze for a moment. The dog lunged on its chain, baring its teeth and ready to attack anyone daring to approach. He hasn't let anyone near him for over a year, the owner explained, keeping a safe distance. I just leave food and walk away. Tried to pet him once. He nearly bit my hand off the last time I replaced the chain. I had to put sleeping pills in his food because it was impossible to get close. Alex took some boiled meat from his bag, a method that usually worked with aggressive dogs, but Gray didn't even glance at the treat, continuing to bark and growl furiously only when everyone stepped back far enough. Did the dog quickly grab the food, all the while keeping his eyes fixed on the unwelcome visitors. Alex tried speaking in different tones, from firm commands to gentle coaxing, but Gray reacted the same way to every sound with explosive barking. Then Alex noticed something when he spoke in a soft, calm voice. The dog's ears twitched slightly, as if trying to catch every word. Alex's clothes carried the scent of other dogs. He had spent the whole day at the kennel. Gray paused briefly to sniff the air, but then erupted in an even more intense fit of rage every time Alex tried to take even a small step toward the dog. Gray lunged forward, stretching the chain to its limit. The sound of the metal echoed across the yard, and it seemed either the chain would break or the dog would hurt itself in its frantic attempts to reach the handler. Alex decided to try a different tactic. Slowly, he turned away from the dog, pretending to be interested in something else. In the yard, the barking paused for a moment, replaced by a low growl. There was something new in the silence, almost like confusion. The next hour was spent trying to get closer to the dog. Alex moved incredibly slowly, taking tiny steps. Sometimes he stopped for 15 or 20 minutes, allowing GR to adjust to his presence at the new distance. The dog no longer barked constantly, but the growling didn't stop any movement of Alex's hand toward the dog. Reignited a surge of aggression, yet Alex noticed that if he kept his hand low and moved it very slowly, Gray watched with less tension. There was a hint of curiosity in the dog's eyes, although it was still overwhelmed by fear and anger at one point. Even the experienced handler had a grim thought. Perhaps the dog was so deeply traumatized that euthanasia would be the only humane solution, but the idea was unbearable to someone who had dedicated his life to saving dogs. Alex decided to try one last approach. He asked everyone to step back as far as possible and simply sat down on the ground a few steps from the doghouse. Time passed. The sun slowly began to set, Gray continued to growl, but his tone changed. It now carried hints of uncertainty and curiosity. Why wasn't this person leaving? Why wasn't he trying to get closer? What did he want? Another hour and a half went by. Dusk was settling in, then something extraordinary happened. The dog stopped growling. Grace still watched every move Alex made, but his posture became less tense. His tail, which had been tucked tightly under him, lowered slightly. The snarl faded, though his lips were still slightly curled, revealing his teeth very slowly. Alex pulled out a special pole used for working with aggressive dogs. This was a critical moment. It was now or never. Any sudden movement could trigger another explosion of aggression. To everyone's surprise, Gray allowed Alex to come close enough to release him from the chain. The dog's body was as taut as a bowstring, but he didn't try to attack the moment the heavy chain finally fell to the ground. Something remarkable happened. It was as if an invisible spring inside the dog unwound. Gray stood still, then cautiously took a step forward, free for the first time in years. When they moved him into the Animal Protection Societies, then no one could believe their eyes. Gray walked calmly without trying to bite or escape, and when Alex chose to spend a few more hours with him instead of immediately sending him to the shelter, something miraculous occurred. Without the chain, Gray began to change right before their eyes. At first, the changes were subtle. His posture relaxed, his gaze softened. Then, for the first time, Gray cautiously sniffed Alex's outstretched hand, not to bite, but to investigate. In that moment, his tail, still low, gave a faint wag. By evening, Gray allowed Alex to stay close, and within hours, something unbelievable happened. The dog approached Alex seeking affection. Gray's walk changed from tense and rigid to soft and almost cat-like. His shoulders relaxed, and his tail rose higher with each passing hour. By the next day, he was a completely different dog, calm, friendly, and eager for human contact. When Alex sent photos to the animal control service, they couldn't believe it was the same dog. The pictures showed Gray lying peace why next to a person, letting himself be petted. His eyes no longer held fear or anger, only peace and trust. No special rehabilitation techniques were used, no medications. The only thing that changed in Gray's life was the removal of the chain that had restricted not only his movements but also his mind for years. This story became another proof of what Alex had been saying for years: keeping dogs on chains is not only inhumane but also extremely dangerous. According to statistics from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, chain dogs are almost 3 times more likely to bite adults and 5 times more likely to bite children. But most importantly, chains deprive dogs of the chance to be what they are meant to be: loyal companions to humans. Gray is now preparing to move to a new home. Several families have already expressed interest in adopting him. Alex uses this story in his lectures, emphasizing how important it is to fight against the practice of chaining dogs. Sometimes all it takes is removing the chains, both physical and mental, to save a life and reveal a dog's true character. Every time I see a dog on a chain, Alex says, I remember Gray's eyes, first full of fear and rage, then gratitude and trust, and I realize that nothing is impossible if you truly want to help. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more content. Please leave your comments and share your experiences. Thank you for being part of ZF Story Life community. See you soon. Subscribe to our channel for more stories that inspire, challenge, and unite us all.